welcome back to the Get Loved Up podcast. I am so excited today. I have a special guest and dear friend. I think he might be the first person I've had on this podcast twice because he is that awesome. Kute Blackson is just such a huge motivational force in the world. And he is coming back at us with a special message about surrender. Kute, welcome.
Great to be back. I'm honored to be back twice.
Wow. I can't get enough of your messaging, your impact, your fierceness. It just really rings through to my soul. Can you tell me a little bit what your life's been like? I mean, last time, I think it was about almost 2 years ago now when we did our first podcast and another book. So how has your life been like during the last couple of years?
Wow, it's been intense, lots of amazing changes, just growing, expanding, evolving, transforming, recreating, traveling nonstop. In the last year, with 2020, that was an intense year of just surrendering. I mean, literally, and surrendering to the flow. Moved from LA after 20 years, moved to Phoenix, let go of my office in LA, broke up with someone who was a big love, sold my house in Phoenix, moved to Miami. I mean, expanding in so many different directions and dimensions, that just things I couldn't even have imagined. So it's been intense. It's been beautiful. And, whenever you write a book about surrender, watch out.
I know. And so you're writing this book while all of this is going on. And I know we had a conversation, a one-on-one conversation that really rocked my world and really helped me out more than you knew. Wow. But it was about relationships, and with Get Loved Up, it's all about, love yourself, love others, love the world. But it starts with, with that relationship with self. So can you talk a little bit? I know we kind of skated through the relationship, but that's something I really want to talk about because I feel like you really have a very specific and unique message when it comes with your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others. So if you are open, can you share a little bit about how kind of like your personal world was rocked and you shifted and changed it for a person, and then that didn't work out in the middle of you trying to run your company? And a lot of us entrepreneurs find ourselves in that situation. What was that like?
It was challenging and intense. Sometimes we have this idea of what we think is going to happen, what we think something should be, and sometimes it's not. But I really believe that for me, the focus of every relationship, and I believe that the purpose of every relationship, beyond just having fun and liking each other and hanging out with each other and sex and travel and, blah, blah, blah. I think the purpose of every relationship is we attract people into our lives because we have some soul karmic lessons to teach each other, or there is some evolutionary soul lessons that we have to work through, move through, and gift each other with, And so I think the real purpose of relationship is to learn those lessons. The real purpose of relationship is to grow and evolve. The real purpose of relationship is to become more of who we really are. And I think everyone we attract to us in some way, shape, or form is a mirror manifestation of who we are, or a mirror manifestation of some aspect of our consciousness, or a piece. It could be, even if it's not the totality of who we are, it's a piece of the puzzle of something that we need to heal, transform, let go of, make peace with, integrate, resolve, accept, or just be done with. And it could be a pattern from the past, a pattern from our parents. And so I think the real success in any relationship, and how I see it more and more, is the degree to which we learn those lessons and the degree to which we evolve. And so I was in this beautiful relationship. And because I'm someone who is constantly evolving and growing very rapidly, I'm always looking for the deeper lessons. I'm always I'm less interested in just what's on the surface. This happened, that happened, this didn't happen. And I'm always looking for the deeper soul lesson. And, you know, in a nutshell, if someone isn't growing and evolving at that similar rate, I found it becomes hard for the relationship to continue. So for me, success of relationship is growth. Success of relationship is evolution. Success of relationship is not whether you stay together for 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, because I think you can stay together in a relationship for 30, 40, 50 years, be miserable, be not growing, suppress who you really are, you know, be disconnected from your truth, not be in love, but you're together. Is that truly successful if you're not growing as a soul? I personally wouldn't say so from the sort of soul definition. And so, worked through that, and it was intense. It was intense. It was beautiful. It was challenging. It was heartbreaking. It was magnificent. And the level of freedom I felt through once let's say the relationship was complete was very profound. You know, really profound. Like there was a vibrational shift in me through the learning of what I needed to learn, or I would just say the letting go. You know, It was just letting go of a certain dynamic and a certain pattern and a certain energy and frequency, you know, around my mother, around some things. I was like, you know what, I'm done with that. And it was like stepping into a new phase. And through going through that and so many other things during that time frame, I felt like because I moved through that, literally it felt like stepping into a new life. And I think that's one of the things as to why I ended up in, let's say, Miami, because I think when we shift our vibration and we shift our frequency and we shift our energy, I'm not going to say we become a different person, but we start literally energetically vibrating at a different level. So we transcend our current situation, experience, and environment. And for me, my energy had shifted so intensely, profoundly, that my outer experience and circumstance was no longer, and I'm talking about where I was living, and I loved my house that I had in Phoenix, but I'm talking about Phoenix, where I was living, even LA, where I was living. Like the outer environment was no longer a reflection of my internal reality. And I believe that life is a mirror manifestation. Life is a reflection of our inner reality. And so I always tell people, look at your life, look at your relationships. Do you like what you see? If you don't like what you see, don't point the finger out there. Step one, take full responsibility. Take full responsibility. Don't be a victim. Take full responsibility. It's a mirror. Don't try to change the mirror. Use what is showing up in your life in the form of people, situations, experiences as a feedback mechanism and a gift so that you can recalibrate and change what's going on inside in terms of your beliefs about yourself, in terms of your relationship with yourself, in terms of how you see life, in terms of the mental, emotional incompletions that you may not have resolved, then clear that, release that, because as you release, shift, clear, transform, recalibrate, then the projection of what shows up in life will also have to change to match what is really going on. So if you want to know what's really going on inside in terms of your own unconscious, just look at your life. Life doesn't lie.
Absolutely. That's so profound. And I want to dive a little bit deeper because you touched on something that I've been working on a lot, and that's like inner child work. And when you mentioned, seeing a pattern that you had when you connected with your mother, can you share a little bit more about like what pattern did you see that you had to shift, or that you had to say, okay, I'm going to surrender that. Like, that's not something that I want to keep repeating in my future.
It's such a long thing that it will take a moment to get into. But there was just, for me, without getting into a lot of stuff right now, there was just certain things that weren't working for me. And I just got to a place where I realized this is not working for me, and I don't have to save anybody, fix anyone, change anyone, make anyone different. And growing up, I always wanted to the sort of over responsibility of just trying to save someone or change someone or heal someone, transform someone. It's like, you know what? It's fine. I just got to a place of, no, I'm not going to do that this time. I'm not in that space this time. And that's kind of where I was at, and just allowing things to be, allowing people to have their own journey. I think everyone has their own journey in life, and for me, letting people find their own path and their own journey and resolve their own stuff without having to be the healer, do the healing, and just honoring every person's process.
It's so powerful. Like, I remember I was talking to someone that used the word codependency. And I was like, as an independent woman, I was like, what do you mean codependent? But it has to do with feeling like you have to nurture and take care of everyone and fix everyone's problems and it's something that to the detriment of yourself even, and it's like your life and your feeling of love depends on you being able to help someone. And I was like, wow. I was just like, so amazed. So I feel like it's important to call out because a lot of us healers, of us motivational speakers or people in the wellness world, because helping other people and bringing other people joy gives us joy, we can fall into that.
It's important. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like calling it out really helped me, like, do the research, because I heard it before, but I didn't connect with it because I really didn't understand the term and I really didn't understand what it meant. But then when I started to understand it, I surrendered to it, which we're going to get into. When you talk about surrendering, like, once you realize, okay, this is not working for me, you've made all these shifts and changes. Where did you have to surrender? And where were you in the process of writing your book with all this?
The process of writing my book happened way before. That was funny. People think, yes, what a great topic. COVID's happening, great topic. But what was pretty profound is the theme of the book, which is about surrender. I wrote this before COVID happened. I wrote this the year before. And when COVID happened, I started feeling like, wow, there's an intelligence in the universe that's guiding this whole process. That this book has a soul of its own. And I have a feeling that this book is going to be a very interesting book. And people are going to be ready for this particular book when it comes out, because it didn't come out during 2020. It's coming out, right in 2021. And so it just felt like there was a magic driving the unfolding of the book. And for me, the book came about in another process of surrender, because it was inspired because my mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And that was a very difficult moment. It was a very challenging moment when the woman I love the most, the person I love the most on the planet, the person I'm the closest with is basically going to die, and I got to spend an entire year with my mother, traveling from LA to London, being with her, sitting with her, being in chemo, just holding her hand. And from what I observed during that time and what I experienced during that year and what I got to observe in her and see in her was part of the inspiration for this book, because I never saw her. I mean, she knew she was dying. I never saw, and my mother was a very emotional, very human, person. I mean, she just had all these emotions and had her own challenges. But during this time, I never saw her complain. I never saw her go into fear. I never saw her feel like a victim. There was a moment when, and this is all of what sort of led to the book, and I didn't know that this was leading to the book. It was just unfolding. But there was a moment when the doctors told her, basically, you're going to die in a nice way, and we don't know how long you will have. And I was with her, and I looked at her after that, and I said, are you afraid? And she said, I'm not afraid, because I know I'm not just this body. I know that I'm an eternal spirit. And, it's easy to say that when everything's great, but when you're about to die and the reality in your mortality is there. And it was so profound. And so I said to her, Mom, what can I do for you to make your days easier? Like, what do you need? What can I buy, take you And she looked at me, and this was the crux of surrender. And I think the seed of the book, because she said, there's nothing I need, son. I said, so what do you want? She goes, all I want is what God wants for my life. There was a depth of surrender in her that was the key to her peace. And I'm not saying it's easy to get to that, but I saw that was why she was at peace. And when I looked at when she passed away, I thought I was going to write another book that was about something else. This was not the book I planned to write. Surrender, I had all these ideas. I had an entire whiteboard of ideas of thinking, oh, I'm going to write about this. I'm going to write about greatness. I'm going to write about that. I'm going to write about purpose. I'm going to write, all these ideas I thought I wanted to write about. Then one day, the energy and the soul of the book came forward so clearly. It was like, boom. And I looked at it. And to deny that would have been resistance. And I looked at it, and I had to surrender to the soul of the book and being a vessel for this book. That was a surrender, because I don't want to write about surrender. And that's what was seeking to be written about. Then the title came through. It's like the magic of surrender. No, it's got to be different. I don't want that to be the title. This is what it is. And so I think, part of the shift is that I have gone through over the last 10 years, especially in the last few years, is moving from this idea of what do I want for myself and for my life, to really asking myself the question more and more, what is it that life, if I become still, if I become quiet, what is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that life wants to manifest through me? How is it that life wants to love through me? What is the deepest impulse of life that is seeking to express through me, and to actually surrender and attune to that? When we do, then I believe we're able to open ourselves up to more than ourselves, more than our ego, more than our limitation, more than our past, more than our personal power. We're able to open ourselves up to the infinite possibilities of life. And that's when I have seen in the last few years alone, throughout my life, that's when life, the bigness of life, the infinity of life, the magic of life, the greatness of life starts to live us and express through us. And all of the great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Muhammad Ali, Bruce Lee, Sojourner Truth, Viktor Frankl, Colin Kaepernick, Oprah, Mandela, Martin Luther King, on whatever level of greatness it may be, all of the great ones got to a point in their lives where they have to surrender to something bigger than themselves. I'm sure Colin Kaepernick didn't want to, his plan wasn't, I'm just going to give up my, NFL career just because that's I would love that. But I think he felt something bigger than him moving through when he took that knee. I'm sure Mandela didn't plan or want to spend 27 years in prison. I'd love to spend 27 years in prison. But I think he had to surrender that there was something moving him bigger than him. And so what if he didn't spend 27 years in prison? Would it have been different? Probably. And so sometimes what we have to surrender is the idea of who we think we are. The idea of who we think we should be, the idea of the life we think we should have, the idea of the relationship we think we're going to have. And when we're able to say, you know what? I don't know. I don't need to know. All I know is I'm going to follow the deepest, most authentic truth in my soul, because this is what's coming through. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's going to lead me. I don't even know how it's going to end up. All I know is this is real. This is true. And if I move my fear aside, if I move my ego aside, and I stop trying to negotiate with my mind and life, this is what life is pushing me to. And I think if we're able to go there, that's when things tend to happen that we can't even imagine for ourselves. That's when the magic happens. And for me, that's what I've seen the last few years. That's the invitation of the message of the book.
That is so profound and so powerful. And yet so many people are going by a different message. We're all like, what's my purpose? What's my goals? And these things. So what do you say to that person? Wait a minute, I just found my purpose. I just found my goal. And you're telling me to surrender? What?
Look, surrender doesn't mean you don't go for a goal. Surrender doesn't mean you don't set intention. But here's the thing we have to kind of question. I think there's people that say, well, you just do you. You do you. So I will ask people, well, first, before you do you, before you start doing you, who is the you that you're doing? Who are you really? Let's get clear on who the you is that you're thinking about doing, because many times the you that you want to do, it ain't you. It's an idea of you that's based on what your parents told you you should be, and wounds and survival mechanisms, et cetera, that ain't really you. And so many times the goals that we set are what we think we want based on who we think we are. That aren't necessarily, not always, but aren't necessarily authentic. Some of our goals are based on unmet needs from childhood that we think, if I can achieve that, if I can become famous, if I can become the actress or the actor or win the Oscar or get the Grammy or achieve that goal, then I'm going to be enough. I'm going to be validated. I'm going to, so I think we have to be willing to step back. And I'm not saying don't go for the goal. I'm saying feel deeper. Align first with, is this authentic? Feel the authenticity of your soul and your heart first and foremost. Then you can align your actions, effort, intention, strategy, marketing with the deepest intention of your soul, so that your goal is aligned with your soul and you're going in the right, authentic, aligned direction. So it's not like don't have a goal. And I am saying, yes, have your goal, the deepest goal you have in the moment. Give 100%. So surrender doesn't mean you don't show up and play fully in life. It means you give 100%, but you don't get attached. Try not to get attached to the outcome. Don't get attached to the outcome of where you think it's going to go, what you think is going to happen, because the moment we start getting attached is the moment we start limiting life. And so what I'm inviting people to do is go in the direction of your authentic goals. Go in the direction of your purpose in this moment, but don't get attached to what you think your purpose is, because your purpose also is evolutionary. Your purpose will evolve and expand as your consciousness evolves and expands. And sometimes you might go in a direction, and if you're attached that that's what it's going to be, then you won't be open and available when it's not, and life moves you in a different direction. And so there's moments when not getting what you think you want is actually grace and a blessing from the universe. Not getting what you think you want is a blessing. That relationship not happening. How many of us, we were in a relationship and we really, Koya, maybe you've been through this. I've been through it. We really wanted that person to be the one, right? It's like, they're the one. No, I want them to be the one. Please, God, make them the one. But now, in retrospect, you look back and you're like, damn, I am so glad that didn't work out. But we weren't able, from our level of consciousness or perception in that moment, to see the whole picture, because from the perspective of the ego, we're only able to see a small sliver of the totality of existence. And so sometimes in retrospect, it takes time, takes 5 years, 10 years to look back and go, I'm glad that didn't work out. And so to surrender is to act fully in the direction of what's authentic, to give 100%, but it is the willingness to also be open, to not get attached and be open to life, be open to allowing life to lead you.
Right.
That's a key. And the willingness, last thing I'll say, is the willingness to not know. Because we're constantly knowing, Koya. The mind is like, this is what this is what that is, this is where I'm going, this is what this means. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just need it to go in that direction to meet that person. You thought it was about that thing over there, but it was just to meet that person because that person connected you there, and boom, now you're living a destiny you didn't even think. Sometimes you just needed to go through that experience. You thought that experience was the goal, but you need to go through that experience because there were certain lessons around forgiveness, around betrayal, around whatever you needed to learn, around self-love, that you needed to learn in that experience, that if you didn't go through that experience, you would never develop that understanding. And that understanding is a necessary puzzle piece for your preparation for your true calling. And so I think when we surrender, we're able to focus on not the achievement of the goal and hold on to that, but focus on the evolutionary, learning the evolutionary soul lesson inherent in every single situation.
Wow. That's just so powerful. And I love that you kind of broke it down. Like it's not about being certain, because right now people are like, it's so much uncertainty. We don't know. And you're telling us you don't need to know, and you don't have to know. You just have to align your purpose, your goal with your soul, which I love that. Align your goal with your soul and don't be attached to a specific outcome. And I think that's the most profound thing for people to hear right now, because none of us know. Now, as certain as we want the scientists and the researchers and everyone that's trying to figure it out are still in this place of uncertainty.
Yes.
But when you're able to surrender, you can have this, what you call peace of mind. And I 100% resonate with that, because at the end of the day, just like your mom, you have to have peace with whatever reality you end up in and still be willing to find peace. Yeah. Otherwise, you can have the most money, you have the most, all the things you want, but if you don't have peace of mind, what do you have?
What do you have? And even when we think we know, it's often just an illusion. We don't know. The amount of times, and maybe folks listening, you can relate to this, the amount of times I thought I knew what something was. This is what it is. And it turned out not to be. And so I think the deeper I go, the less I realize I know. Yep. And so to be willing, the degree of freedom I think we experience and can experience in life is the degree to which we can dance in the unknown and embrace in the unknown and not hold so tightly to, this is what this means. 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 And say, okay, maybe, but let me be open. Then we don't limit life. And all I'm inviting people to say is, don't limit life. Sometimes we're constantly limiting life with what we think we know. Oh, that person won't be. No, that will never work. No, that they're not. No, I know how they're going to be. No, they wouldn't be interested. And we're not even open. We've become so closed and limited life rather than saying, you know what? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Here I am, universe. I'm open. And when we can live in that state of openness, that's when we tap into the magic. The magic. You know, what I do want to, let me just share, because I think this will help people, a couple of quick phases, right? The first, just to give people a bit of a framework, if they're like, well, what do you mean? Okay. First stage of the process of surrender is, we'll call it being in denial. Okay, maybe you're living life, and maybe it's in the zone where we're a bit unconscious. We're just living life. We're not even really aware yet. And we're in denial. We're in denial that something needs to shift. We're in denial that we need to do things differently. So there's a level of denial. We don't even know that we're lying. It's denial, right? Then we move into a little bit of awareness. Maybe you take Koya's yoga class, listen to the Get Love That podcast, right? And you start questioning, like, maybe there's more. Maybe I need to make some changes. But there's still a level of fear, because everything you knew is now in question. And there's a fear of, if I make changes, what might happen and the consequences. So then we move into a phase of resistance. The ego starts resisting out of self-preservation. It's like, So the resistance starts happening. We've all been in resistance. We put blockage. One of the ways we resist is we lie to ourselves. We lie to ourselves about what we feel, about what's true. We rationalize, we BS ourselves, and we kind of sometimes stay confused. And so we move from denial to resistance. Then we've resisted enough. Then we start loosening a bit. Then we start negotiating. We move into phase 3, where we start negotiating. We start negotiating with the universe. We start negotiating our destiny. Well, maybe he's not that bad. Maybe he's got potential. She's got potential. Maybe I could make it work. Maybe if I just change these things. And the truth is, no, it's not true. But we start negotiating as a way to hold on to the structures that we know for a sense of control and safety. We know things need to change, but we start negotiating to not make the changes we know we need to make. Then we move to a place where it's painful enough, so we have to start telling the truth to ourselves in this phase. Then it becomes painful enough where we realize no matter how much I negotiate, things aren't changing. It's not changing. Reality is not changing. That person's not changing. My financial situation is not changing. My health isn't changing. I got to make some change. Then we move into the phase that's important of acceptance. This is a key phase. We move into a state of acceptance. This is what it is. This is what it's not. This is who they are. This is what they are. Acceptance. Accepting what is. Then we bring ourselves into relationship with what is. Then we can begin to make some changes. Now, most people stay in this phase. Most people, this is it. They evolve as much as the phase of acceptance, but acceptance is not surrender. In acceptance, you can still be internally resisting what is. You can be resisting, like it's raining outside, but I'm really pissed off that it's raining outside, and it shouldn't be raining outside. And why the hell is it raining outside? And why does it always rain outside when I want to go outside and do my yoga? And you go outside, you take an umbrella, but you're moaning, groaning, and mad at the world that it's raining outside. So there's still an internal judgment or resistance to what is. But you're in acceptance. So acceptance doesn't necessarily mean surrender. Right? The experience I'm having is not the experience I should be having, can still be happening in the phase of acceptance. To move to surrender, surrender is the open-hearted participation with life. The open-hearted participation with life, because you understand, number one, ultimately every single thing that happens in your life is for your highest good and betterment and soul's evolution. Number two, even if you can't see it right now. Number two, if you realize that we incarnate into this human experience as a soul because we are here to grow, learn, and evolve and learn lessons, then surrender, no matter how challenging the situation, the experience, the relationship is the willingness to focus on the evolutionary soul lesson in any situation and not get caught up in the story on the surface. And so then you're willing to surrender to, this is challenging, this is difficult, this is hard, but let me roll my sleeves up and participate and surrender to the situation and grow from this situation so I can transcend it, because all lessons are going to be repeated until learned. So this is surrender. To move from acceptance to surrender, this is the stage that most people miss. It is grieving. The stage of grieving. Most people tend to miss grieving for a variety of reasons. Grieving is the willingness because to surrender is a death, you see. To truly surrender is a death of who you thought you were. Surrender of the idea of the relationship you thought you were going to have with that person. Surrendering the life you thought you were going to have. Surrendering who you thought you were going to be, surrendering an old identity, surrendering an old part of yourself. I had a dear friend who met the love of her life, getting married, and she was telling me, Kute, I'm feeling some grief. The part of the grief, and I said, feel the grief, because to open to the love fully that you have for this man, if you don't feel the grief, there'll be a part of you that won't be fully available to him because you haven't honored the grief. She said, what do you mean? Because what she realized was through our conversation, what she was surrendering was the old part of her independent, single identity as a woman. And that was something she got to let die because she'd been single for like 12 years or something like that, So there was a grieving of that part of herself that she preserved. And that was beautiful to let that grieve and enter into a new phase. And so grieving, we sometimes don't allow ourselves to grieve as a way to resist the change. Because if I don't really let myself grieve, then maybe it hasn't really happened. Maybe I can still have them, right? Maybe they're not really gone. Maybe it's not really over. And so that's one way. One reason we don't allow ourselves to grieve is because we're afraid if I really let myself grieve, I won't be able to handle it. It's going to be too much. And so we disconnect. But all feelings remain present until fully felt. And all feelings have their own cycle. So if we're willing to hold our grief and our feelings with awareness, with compassion, with empathy, with love, and realize if I allow myself to feel this with awareness and responsibility, every feeling has a cycle that it dissolves. If we feel it, it will dissolve. And grief may not all happen at once. It happens in layers, and it happens in stages, and it happens in phases. So I think if we're willing to allow the waves of grief, it moves. And then we're open. And then there's another phase and another layer of grief. And then we go about life. Maybe weeks later, there's another layer of grief. And so the more we're able to move through those layers of grief, the more we open, the lighter we become. One reason spiritual folks, I have found, don't honor the grief is because we want to be in a high vibration. We want to stay in the high vibration, law of attraction. Koya, law of attraction, we've got to stay in that high vibe. And so it's like, well, grief is a low vibe. I want to stay in the high vibe. But by not honoring the grief, we energetically keep ourselves stuck in the heaviness that we're not allowing ourselves to feel, which will then be the vibrational factor that attracts more heaviness into our life and things and situations to grieve about because we haven't felt it. To truly attract in our lives, we have to be willing to grieve, let go, so that we can open to the surrender. Then we move into the stage 7, which I call the magic or the flow. And that's when we're in the zone, we're in the flow, things start happening. We can't.
But before we get to that,
it's your time to step into your full power and potential. Are you tired of playing small and ready to make a big difference in the world? If your answer is yes, then the Wellness Entrepreneur Mastermind is for you. This mastermind will give you all the tools you need to turn your passion into purpose and live from a space of abundance as you let go of your limiting beliefs and negative self-talk. We coach you to thrive 1 week at a time, one goal at a time. We teach you what's working right now and what's not, so you can position yourself as a community leader and create real change in the world. If you're ready to level up and stand in your power, then go to koyawebb.com/mastermind to join our next group of wellness entrepreneurs. Space is limited and your time is now, so don't delay. Make a difference today.
I'm going to have you break down grief and what grief looks like, because we are taught, like you said, we're taught to be invincible. We're taught to get that high vibration. So I want you to share with people some examples of what does grief look like for you? What does grief?
Okay. For instance,
people are not taught to grieve.
Yes. We're taught. We often think like we're often taught to avoid grief. We're often taught that grief is wrong, grief is bad, grief is not great, grief is not spiritual, grief is not whatever. And so there is a fear of, if I grieve, I won't survive. If I grieve, it will never end. If I grieve, I won't be able to come out of it. And so we distract ourselves, we numb it, we smoke it, we sex it, we drink it, we social media it, we shop it, we work it away so that we don't feel the grief fully. But then there's always a low-grade kind of sadness or something, heaviness, that we carry inside of it. We haven't felt the grief, but there's that low-grade heaviness of energy that we haven't fully processed that stays stuck in our nervous system. And so when we don't fully honor the grieving, and that might be tears, that might mean just having a moment, it doesn't have to look like it would look like for anyone else, but to honor the death of something, When my mother died, I honored the grief. When a relationship ends, I honor the grief. Because to honor the grief is to honor the love. And if you suppress the grieving inside of your heart, you shut down inside of you the same mechanism and capacity that we use to love. So to suppress the grief is to suppress our capacity to feel and open to and embrace the loving at the same time. So when we honor the grief, so I'm saying no grief, no love. No grief, no love. So we have to honor the grief. And what that means is when something shifts in your life, when something dies in your life, like the quickest way through a breakup is here's a mistake people make: break up with a relationship, jump into another relationship instantly. All you're going to do is bring all of that unresolved grief into your new relationship. Quickest way through a breakup is to take the time to really feel and process and cry and whatever needs to move through you, the energy that needs to move through you, to give that its own cycle and space and time, and it will move. Every feeling has its own cycle, its own time, its own process. And so when we can peel the layers of grief, one layer and another layer and another layer and another layer, and not judge it. Sometimes we're judging it like, but I felt this last week, why am I feeling it again? Not judge it, not make it wrong. Create the space for yourself. Create the time for yourself to feel it, to grieve it, to cry it, to move it, to yoga it, to just let it move through. A layer peels away. And then there may be another layer again, and you allow that. A layer peels away, and you get lighter. And then there may be another layer again, a layer. So honoring the grief, then you can truly open to authentic surrender, not like a fake surrender, like where I'm surrendering, but true open-hearted surrender that comes from the openness of having cleared the old energies. Not a surrender where you're making yourself like surrender, but you're truly open. And that's the beauty. And I think grief humbles us. Grief breaks our heart open. Grief tenderizes us. Grief, through feeling grief, we also start to realize the profound strength of the heart, and how the heart also, no matter how much grief we feel, cannot truly be broken. And there's a certain kind of power that also arises when we allow ourselves to feel the grief. So don't distract yourself. Create the space and the time. Grieving is not being a victim or wallowing in the feeling. It is a conscious, intentional willingness to create the space to feel what you feel so that you can move through.
I love that you said, the heart can't be broken. And it's almost as if the grief is in the heart. It's actually full. And once you allow it to release, the heart can be actually a lot lighter.
Yes.
But it's not going away. And I know myself, like processing through breath work and yoga, like you said, and journaling how I feel. There's so many ways that you can release and express yourself through these emotions. These emotions just want to be heard. And I feel like emotions are love. People know all the emotions are vibrations of love, even the ones that we feel like the most negative are leading us back to love. So when a person is like, all right, so I'm going to experience this grief thing, I'm going to let myself grieve so I can feel this magic. What do you feel? Especially, in this world where we're like, get back on this higher vibration. What do you feel is the time where like, okay, I've grieved enough? Is there a time? Is there for you? Is there a space when like, okay, I've cried for a week now. I think I'm
Yeah. It's not, and it's not like you necessarily sit there in your bed, don't move and cry for a week, just to make it clear to everyone. It's like, okay, I cry for a week now. They said cry. They said, I've been in my bed for 21 days crying. It's not necessarily how it is, but I'm saying create the spaces in your life, where you're not busy, where you can be still and you allow yourself to feel and let that process. And then I also believe move into life, move back into life. So it's the undulation, it's the titration, it's the dance of you honor the grief, and you move back into life, and you serve, and you live, and you express, and then through the process of life, you honor the grief, and then you go back into life. And so it's a wave, it's an ebb and a flow. I wouldn't say it's just take the next year, only feel grief, because then you could get stuck in that. I think it's important that you really give yourself the ebb and the flow, where you feel the grief, go back into life, feel the grief, you go back into life, surround yourself with positive people, surround yourself with community, surround yourself with loved ones, and there will come a time, if you're really allowing the process, and not getting stuck in that process, where you feel lighter, you start feeling lighter, and there's more lightness. And when you think about the situation, you're able to learn the lessons from that situation or that relationship or what you needed to learn. When you're able to receive the gift of that situation. Like, for instance, when I grieved my mother, there were moments of tears, and when I grieved my mother, it was like there were certain moments where in the grieving, there was so much love in the grief for my mother. The depth of grief was a depth of love. That in the grieving, my heart in moments would there was so much love, it would just break open. And through the grieving, I found different shapes and different dimensions of my own heart's capacity to love, that I wouldn't have even felt and known was there unless I allowed the grieving. And through time, it's like, oh, and then you go through time and live weeks, months, and then you think, oh, everything is kind of cool. And then there might be a moment where something triggers it, and it's like, oh, there's another wave inside. And so you hold that, you allow that. It's not coming from the sense of, but I felt this 3 months ago. Why am I feeling this again? It's just, just another layer, another layer that's being cleared and holding that, and then another layer. And so then you come to, I think then we can come to the space of just pure love, and that might take years. It might take years, but I think we can come to the space of pure love, even in a relationship with someone that you really love. It can take a while, but you can get to the space where you can look at your ex or the person, that it doesn't have to just be a romantic relationship, where you look at them and you've reached a point where you can look at them and say, at least within yourself, thank you for breaking my heart. Where you can truly, like, this is a very, I think, high stage of it, where you can truly go, thank you for breaking my heart, because that journey that you were taken on through that challenge, that difficulty, that betrayal, that heartbreak, took you so deep in yourself that it gave you such profound gifts that would not have happened otherwise. So you start seeing that their soul played their perfect karmic role in your soul's evolutionary journey that was perfect. And then, like, wow, you've moved to a whole nother stage of just grief to gratitude, which might take a moment to get to. And we don't have to force ourselves to get there. We don't have to do a spiritual bypass. That's what I'm saying. I don't want people to go, oh, the goal is to get to the gratitude. How can I feel the gratitude? But then there's still resentment and what have you. Feel it all. And through time, if you're able to feel it, move through it. But then also, one of the ways people sometimes stay stuck in certain emotions or anger or what have you in relationships too, is because we forget that we are souls. and we get caught up on the surface level. This happened, he said, this is this, and they did that. But realize that everyone we attract into our situation, into our experience, there is something in our soul, there is some karma, there is something our soul is seeking to resolve. And I think if we're willing to move from the material level of existence, this happened, that happened, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they should have done that. Because at that level, it will never end.
Right.
Okay, maybe we're right. Maybe we're right. But if we stay in that, we'll never be free. And if we're able to drop down and go, what is a real lesson? Why did I attract them? What were they playing? What was the classroom? What was the lesson? Then you start seeing that they were the perfect teacher, and you start focusing on what you can learn, the lessons, and the forgiveness and the letting go, and the releasing.
I love that. I love it, especially when you said the gratitude, the grief to the gratitude. And like you said, the heart can't really break. And so if you allow yourself to flow from the grief to the gratitude, you realize, okay, the person didn't break my heart. They actually opened up these lessons. They cracked my heart open so that all of these lessons can be learned and I can actually be grateful for the experience. Yeah. So I really love how you took us on that journey. And, we're all on the love boat here. And I know for me personally, like I used to hate crying. I went 2 years without crying. I was like, I don't want to cry. Again,
nothing like a good cry, Koya. Nothing like a good cry.
I know. But then I realized, after not crying for 2 years, I cried and how good it felt. I was like, oh, this was absolutely amazing. So I just let myself cry. I remember listening to a speaker. I don't remember his name, but he said, I laugh every day. I cry every day. And at the time I was like, who would want to cry every day? That just sounds really depressing. I kid you not. I cry multiple times a week. And sometimes I cry every day. And I feel like, just like happiness is something that happens on a daily basis, just like night and day, grief, like, especially with what we've been going through for the last year, I probably cried more in the last year. And I've had a better time than my business I've ever experienced, but I've cried more in the last year than I've ever cried in my life. Wow. And I feel like it was just because I was allowing myself to feel it all, the ups, the downs, the mid. And I feel like now it's like, I'm not afraid to cry any day, every day, anytime I feel it. And it allows me to feel, as you said, lighter. Yeah. Like I feel more in alignment with love and acceptance and surrender.
Yeah, because then we don't hold on to it, Mm-hmm. Then we don't hold on to the pain or the hurt or the shame or the guilt or the anger, because we feel it and we let it go. The ability to experience, it's surrendering to the flow of feeling that is moving through, realizing you are not the feeling and you are not the emotion. And when you realize that you are not the feeling and not the emotion is happening inside of you. It's happening inside of you, but you're not it. Then you can surrender to the flow of energy and emotion that is moving through. And then you don't hold on to it. Then it just moves through, comes through, moves through, comes through, moves through, comes through, moves through. Rather than it comes through, we resist it, we push it away, it stays stuck. Comes through, we resist it, and then it stays stuck. And all the times we start suppressing and resisting and we don't feel it, it stays stuck in our psyche, our heart, our physiology, and manifests in sickness and dis-ease and, inability to fully express and open. And so the willingness to surrender to experience your experience fully as it's happening, then we stay clear. We're going to be much more clearer than if we don't.
I love that. In one word, what is the magic of surrender?
In one word, letting go, let go, openness, it's the willingness to trust. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're asking for one word, it's just trust.
I know.
Trust. Yeah. Yeah. And how can we not trust? Koya, someone was saying, Kute, how do I trust? I looked at them. They looked at me like I was crazy. I looked at them like, you're crazy. We had a funny moment because I said, how can you not trust? Every single breath that you take is proof that you can trust life. Mm-hmm. Because you're not sitting here going, breathe, 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 breathe. It's just happening. You know? It's happening. Something is living you. Something is living me. The same something that is functioning, the stars, the sun, the moon, all of existence. It's the laws of nature. How can we not trust this intelligence that is digesting your food and looking, processing through your eyes and taking information in? And I mean, there's never a day that maybe you've experienced this, Koya. I know I haven't. There's never a day when I woke up and at 11 a.m. it was pitch black. The sun just forgot to come out that day. The sun was lazy. The sun was sleepy. You know, it never happens every day. There's the sun and the moon in existence. And so how can we not trust life? If we really just pay attention to nature, life is proving itself to us every single moment. Yeah. You know, for billions of years. And so let's trust bigger than ourselves. Let's trust life, and let's trust that this intelligence knows how to live us, knows how to express through us, knows what to do. And my invitation is let's open to that. Let's open to being lived by that which is living everything.
That's powerful.
That's the invitation.
Is there anything right now that you're surrendering to that you're finding it really hard to surrender to?
I don't know if I'm finding really hard now. I'll be honest. I mean, I've been on such a surrender trip. I mean, you know, the last year and bit was intense, but because I understood what the process of life is about. Life is a process of surrender. You know, there's no way out of this game called life. At the end of the day, you can surrender now. You can surrender tomorrow. We can surrender next year, 10 years from now. On our deathbed, we will have to surrender, or next lifetime, but we're going to have to surrender. So on some level, we all will surrender. We all are being surrendered each moment. And so I think the more we can live that, and so I think when we realize the process of life, then yeah, it might be challenging, but we get to surrender. And so I've been on a real look. I figured if I'm going to write a book about surrender, I need to go deep into this, into this process that is surrender, and live it as fully in every area, you know. And it's been something I've been doing. And so I've seen my life flip upside down 360 in 1 year. And I'm in a zone now of feeling the adventure of it. It's like, bring it on. Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Let's go.
What was the biggest thing you had to let go of?
Oh, you know, so much that happened for me. I mean, you know, losing the love or letting go of this love, you know, and relationship, and not being able to do my events, and after building something quite significant, and just boom, everything shut down, and just saying, okay, you know, letting go, moving from LA. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I was in LA 20 years, 22, 21, 20 years. And I love LA. I'm LA. I am LA. I know every street in LA, Koya. Every street in LA. I know. I'm like the mayor of LA. And
you're president of LA.
I'm president of LA. Yeah. And so when I got the guidance, like it's nudging me in a different direction, that was a death, you know. And there was a moment, but when I realized this energy was moving. And whenever I have trusted this energy, it has never led me wrong. I won a green card in the lottery to come to the US.
I remember that.
You know,
y'all just about his first podcast. He'd tell you about this story.
I won't go into that story now, but
check it out.
But anytime I have followed that energy, it's never guided me wrong. And so it's just about following that now. And I think for me, if anything, it is the deeper I go, the less choice I have. Mm-hmm. The deeper I go, I don't want people to get that wrong. The deeper I go, the less choice I have, the freer I am. The freer I am. Because, when we're in the ego, we think freedom is being able to do whatever we want, with whoever we want, whenever we want, however many times we want. But that's not necessarily freedom. That can be a slave to one's addictions, a slave to one's identity, a slave to one's ego. Because there came a point where Mandela didn't have a choice. He didn't. There came a point where he was like, no more choice. There came a point where Martin Luther King, who, they wanted him to be the head of the civil rights movement for years. He was like, no. But there came a moment where he realized, I don't have a choice anymore. That's powerful. And so it's been the surrendering to the deep moment and realization of, I don't have a choice anymore. What's living me is life. What's living me is life. And my life, our life, your life, ultimately, my life doesn't belong to me. It belongs to life. And so it's a deepening of surrender, of saying to the universe, use me. I am here on this planet to be used at the highest level possible, and just living, talk about what I'm in the zone of is living in the yoga of that openness. So it's, you do yoga. So it's like stretching open that pose of that surrender of what I'm talking about to greater degrees, of maybe it was here and now it's like, okay, let's go deeper into that. Like my life isn't my life, use me. Okay, let's go deeper into that. Okay. And let's see what happens. So I'm open, I'm excited, I'm ready. And I hope everyone is inspired to see like what life can do through you is way more than anything you can do on your own. Jesus, don't take it from me. Jesus said it, because when Jesus did the miracles, not to make this a religious thing, but when Jesus did the miracles, I never heard Jesus once say, hey people, I'm Jesus. I'm great. I'm the shit. I'm the bomb. I'm amazing. Look at the miracles I did. Jesus would always say, it's not I that does the work, but the Father in me that does the work. The Father, consciousness, beingness, infinite intelligence that does the work through me. And that's the invitation. Let life do the work through you. And I think we will be able to truly unfold miracles in our life.
That's powerful. Let life do the work through you. I love it. You're always giving us these golden nuggets, these gems, just dropping the knowledge on us. And I know people are going to be running to get your book. So can you tell us, where they can find the book and where they can go and just unpack some more of these?
Awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, it's always a joy being with you. I do a lot of different interviews, and every time we hang together, you hold such a beautiful space that is honestly really like there's so little ego in you as you do these interviews, and it's as a guest, it makes the process so fluid because the intention is really about serving and allowing what needs to come through to come through. And I just want you to know I really feel that. And I love you. And it's just an honor that you have me back each time. And you're not bored of me yet.
No, never.
Thanks for the invitation. If anyone feels inspired, you can get the book, www.themagicofsurrender.com. Go there. You'll be directed to Amazon, get your receipt. I'm giving away a whole bunch of free gifts like videos and a meditation and a PDF and so many gifts I can't even remember. So get your book there, themagicofsurrender.com.
Love it. Themagicofsurrender.com. Y'all go check it out. Get your goodies, get your bonuses. And thank you so much for tuning into this podcast every single week. I'm going to continue bringing amazing people like Kute to really let you know you're not alone. We're not feeling this alone. We're not feeling pain alone. We're not feeling grief alone. We are feeling it together. No matter who we are, no matter where we are, no matter what we look like, we all go through this wave of emotions, and we are in this together, and we can get through it together. So if you're ever feeling like you're the only one experiencing what you're experiencing, come to the Get Loved Up podcast and get loved up. Make sure you leave a review if you haven't already. We have some gifts for you. When you do leave a review, email me at koya@koyawebb.com. We're going to love you up. And until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the world. One day at a time, one breath at a time. Peace and love.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being part of the Get Loved Up community. I like to share topics and people making a positive impact in the world, and your feedback means the world to me. If you haven't already left a review, please leave a 5-star review and let me know what you want to hear more of on the show. I'm here for you, and together we're making the world a better place, one day at a time, one show at a time. Thank you for listening.